I'm Tim Quilty, the Liberal Democrats member for Northern Victoria in the Victorian Upper House. So, let's talk about last week in Parliament and the pandemic bill. First of all, thank you. We asked you to stand with us as we stood with you. So many of you reached out to my office and asked what you could do. Asked how can one person's voice make a difference. We asked you to let your local MPs know how you were feeling, to tell your story and to ask to be heard. We ask that you do it politely and respectfully. And boy, did you deliver. All of your emails, calls and feet on the ground at the protests, all your stories of hardship, sorrow and loneliness, they all helped to almost derail the passage of this terrible legislation. Through your efforts, you helped put some backbone back into the crossbenchers. In the end, we didn't stop the Public Health and Wellbeing Bill getting passed. Despite our best efforts, we didn't quite keep it from crossing the line. But we know which side of history we are standing on. We know that we can stand proud and say we did all that we could, that we weren't ashamed to publicly speak out against this government when they went too far. We weren't scared to fight for those who felt they had no voice. We can say we stood for what is right and what is just. We all stood for protecting freedom and defending human rights. We all stood in the name of democracy. And at every turn, you were standing right beside us. Your passion and fight to be heard really made a difference. Our protests may have been lied about by the government. They may have been ridiculed and downplayed by the mainstream media. But you know. Many of you were there and you experienced it. The largest ever protests in Australian history. They can lie about the numbers, but we know. Be assured that every voice and every story played its role in at least minimising the damage. I know that the final version of the Public Health and Wellbeing Act is not what many of us were hoping for. Despite the amendments, it is still not even close to acceptable. I am disappointed with the outcome. I am disappointed with MPs who folded under pressure and sold out. I'm sad that all our voices together weren't enough. The Liberal Democrats have opposed the measures that this government has taken from the beginning of the pandemic, right back in March 2020. The Liberal Democrats have voted against the government on more occasions than any other party. We've called out the overreach and lack of transparency. We've called out the taking away of basic human rights. And we've called out the government's bullying and fear-mongering tactics. My colleague David Limbrick has stood and walked beside you all through most of the protest marches in Melbourne over the past 2 years. We have never shied away from standing with you, to see and to understand what the feeling really is out on the streets. I can say that I was happy and proud to stand with you. I wear the association with the protesters as a badge of pride. We fought a good fight and will continue to hold the government accountable as we move forward. Unfortunately, the government had the numbers on the day. Whoever has the numbers controls what legislation is passed. So, now, we need to change the numbers. There are 2 elections in the next 12 months. The federal election in April or May, and the Victorian election in November. The federal election will be our opportunity to send a message to both the major parties by directing our votes to other parties. Then, come November, we will finally get our chance to sack Dan Andrews. But that will be an uphill battle. If you believe the recent polling, the Andrews government is still on track to win the election, and the Victorian Liberals, the so-called opposition, are a dysfunctional mess that stand for nothing. Our party political system is broken, and our parliament is full of Labor and Liberal MPs who ignore the people and vote the party line. If we want that to change, we need to work together. It isn't going to happen by itself. We need an ongoing campaign from now till the elections. This is where we need your help to push the Liberal Democrats' message. From now on, the media will ignore us, focusing on the Labor-Liberal duopoly. If you want the Lib Dems to be a real alternative at the elections, we need you to be our voice. Together, your voices made all the difference. Together we found strength and belonging. Together we stood, and together we will go forward. Don't ever think your voice doesn't count. Collectively, you did, you do, and you will make a difference. Once again, I thank you all for standing with us as we stood with you.